I tell you, I don't think we'd be here today if it wasn't for the Lord, really, because he just, well, I don't know how we'd got through some of the things without him in our life. I grew up with my grandparents because my mother and father passed away when I was a baby. He and my mother got married at 19 years old. They both worked at what they called the Wood Merch, where the Red Cross building is now in Evansville. And he got sick again with his kidneys. And it just, if they had the medications then that they have today, he'd probably lived, but they didn't have. He was in the Deaconess Hospital in Evansville, and he died. Then my mother had to take us children and move back in the country, way back in the country, in the sticks, you might say. And she grieved herself to death, they said. Then when she died, my grandparents on my mother's side were very poor, and they had to, they took one of us, and then my grandparents on my dad's side took my sister, and that's how we separated. But we were pretty close together. I mean, it wasn't too far apart, but back then all they had was a wagon and horses and maybe a Model T Ford that didn't run very fast. But I felt like God just was continually there and looked over us because, our parents were gone, and he's been good to us, all I can say. I've had a wonderful life and a wonderful family. My aunts and uncles looked over me just as if I were their child.
My father passed away when I was 10 years old, and she was talking about being poor. We were poor too. My mother drove a school hack with a team of horses and hauled kids to school, and it runs in my mind that she made 80 cents a day. And times were tough, but she was a good Christian and did real good, and we always had things to eat. And not everything we wanted, but we got by. How I met June? I guess I came back from the Navy and went to a basketball game, and I think that's one of the first times I seen her. And anyway, I started seeing her, and she lived in Stevenson, north of Stevenson, and there was a real low place in the road that water used to get over. I used to have to take a boat and go over to see her. I parked my car there, and a lot of times I didn't have a car. I rode the bus down to the Stevenson Road and then walked to see her. But it's been good. We haven't always agreed on everything, but we've been able to work out our problems if we had any. Never had any real bad ones, and probably do it all over again.
I'll tell you, when we first got married, we had no money. We were poor people, I tell you. And I could go on at the way God has blessed us and took care of us. And Bob's mother was a very faithful Christian, and she went to the Nazarene Church here in Chandler. And she encouraged, we had Saturday night prayer meetings, or they did, and she encouraged us to go with her when we first got married to those prayer meetings. We did a time or two, and then they had a revival in a little church called EB, and that's where we went to this revival, and we were saved. God just blessed us very, very much. I mean, He's been with us all the way, especially with me, because his mother encouraged us so much to stay in church and go to church. I had an Avon route, and we met some people that went to church up where the Faith FWB Baptist Church, and they, a young couple, went there, and they encouraged us to go there.
My brother and I both worked in a machine shop in Boonville, and he was a welder and I was a machinist, and we decided we could start our own business. He would be the welder and I'd be the machinist. And there's a little shop in Evansville that had closed up, a very antique shop that had been closed, and all the machinery was still there. So we bought that for little nothing and started it. We about starved to death for 6 or 8 months. June told me several times, said, we'll never make it. But, anyway, the Lord was good to us there. We stayed there for 20 years, I guess. Then we moved out on Burkhardt Road, built a building out there, and we were in business for about 50 years. Had ups and downs in business, but never any real serious problems. I had a real good brother I was in business with. We got along good together, and I'd probably do that all over again too. Well, there was times when finances were low and attendance was kind of low, and we kind of wondered if the Lord was going to let us continue.
Well, I can remember back when we had hardly any finances at all, and we done a lot of praying, and God worked it out that the finances came in. And I kept the books there for a long time, and sometimes I'd think, oh, we're not going to be able to make this. But somehow or other, the money came in, and God blessed, and He intended for it to go on, so it did.
When Reverend Force was there, and at the end of the month we'd pay all of our bills, we'd have a couple of dollars left. He said we had all we needed.
I don't know how I got started there, but anyway, they asked me to be the teacher, and I did. And then I think I quit for a while, and Wilma Roosh was a Sunday school teacher there, and then she passed away, and they asked me if I would take her class, and I did. So that was how I got started, and I taught there for 20-something years, I guess 23 or 24. I had Todd Higgs and Kara. I had Derek and Chad and Tara. I had Esther and Daniel and Nikki. John Ship and Amy and Sarah and Josh.
I guess another big thing I can remember is when Brother Helms decided he needed to retire, and we looked at candidates to be the new pastor, and your name came up, and we decided to interview you.
Boy, that was crazy.
That was crazy. It worked out well. I'll have to admit that when we talked about it, I was a little, I wondered a little bit about it because you were so young.
Well, I'll never forget when the Whitakers started to our church. They come in and they weren't used to our church, I guess, and she said the seats was hard and the lights glared, and I forgot what else, but anyway, she said, but it's good, she said.
Said it had to be the people.
It had to be the people, she said, yeah. That was the funniest thing there was a lot of funny situations, a lot of sad situations, but God worked through them all.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it was only through prayer and of the people that was there that brought everything about. I can think of a lot of things that how God's blessed, but it just take me all day. I could write a book if I was.
What advice would you give to young families?
Well, just to keep their faith in the Lord and to be faithful to the church and to be faithful to God most of all, wherever they are, and to read their Bible and just trust God to take care of them.
Stay in church. Don't be just a Sunday morning Christian. Go to prayer meeting on Sunday evening and be involved in the church.
But most of all, be faithful to God.
Right.
I think that's most important. Well, everything that we don't have what a lot of people have, but what we have, we worked hard for it. And we trusted God to help us through the times when they were thin. And He's blessed us, and I'm truly thankful. Before you turn that on, you better ask us them questions. We might say something silly.
I appreciate you guys being willing to do this.
I don't know. We kind of thought about it. With, and maybe we shouldn't put that in there. I don't know.
That's okay.
Cut it out. Well, you might want to cut some of that out. Trim it down a bunch.
All right.